Titus, hey, congratulations on your new film, Abraham's Boys, a
Thank you.
Dracula story.
Thank you. Thanks. Great to chat it up with you.
Horror fans is going to be so delightful, with another vampire-like story. But tell us what initially drew you to this project.
Well, when you hear the name Joe Hill, that's synonymous with, excellent material. So it starts there. Um, I read Natasha's script, her adaptation. I thought was she's a fantastic writer. So I blew through that script very, very quickly, and then we had an ongoing dialogue about the character, and it was very collaborative. I had certain ideas, and um as a director, she gave me the room and the real estate to be able to sort of create this character. And look, whenever you're playing a character, there's been so many different iterations of not only Van Helsing and Dracula, but the world they inhabit, right? That um and I felt that, in Natasha's script and in Joe's story, there was a very different take on this, but we didn't, there's we all as fans of horror, or the genre, we know Van Helsing's backstory, so we know what he's done, we know what he's capable of. Um, but to find him now, and at many years later, at a different time and in a different country, and yet still sort of plagued. But in this regard, it's unseen for the most part. So we're relying on him to be, to tell us what's going on, which he does. But the audience experiences this more through the eyes of the boys, which I think Brady and Judah do a marvelous job of. And this is a much more psychological take on this, because we're not seeing him battle vampires like we have in the past. There's none of that stuff there that informs the audience. It's told through dialogue and kind of intent and mood visually set. Um, and I think it works really well, because you don't know, is this in fact really happening, or are we watching Van Helsing, go off the rails? Is this a man in the process of a descent into madness?
So, how do you get into the mental state of this version of Van Helsing?
I sort of came up with the idea that I wanted Van Helsing to be a practitioner of Stoicism, and um, that really informed the physicality of the character, his the way he speaks, and certainly the way he moves, and his response to action and that which he sees. Um, and but the underlying and very important thing, which had to be very subtle, I thought, was in order for the audience to really take the ride, because there's a stability, but an unstable stability, right, about Van Helsing for the audience. Was It would only work if we had grace notes of him expressing his affection. And so they're very, very subtle. Those moments are deeply subtle in the film. But if you don't have that, if the audience doesn't believe that he is a dedicated husband and a father who's merely trying to save his family and protect them, then we kind of just, it would be easy to sort of disregard him as just being a crazy man or a cold and calculating man. And I think those little grace notes are the things that I found and that Natasha embraced. And a lot of that stuff was found on the day on set. And we'd do a take, and then I would say to her, I got I have something in my head," which was usually, she would go, "Okay," kind of rub our hands together, and then we found a lot of stuff on the day, which and it was a marvelous cast, so everyone was very, very open to that stuff. And the boys are, despite their age and experience, they're both really, really good listeners, and they're eager learners. And so, in that regard, they were up for anything. I never felt like, oh God, I gotta look after these kids. They held their own, and they busted their asses, and they delivered great performances, as did Jocelyn and Johnny and Aurora and the whole cast. Marvelous cast.
Well, you certainly did too, because you certainly portrayed Abraham in a different light. So, Titus, thank you very much for speaking to us about Abraham Boys.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day.